Welcome to the 50th episode of Create a Story You Love. Today we've got a special treat for you, and not that I'm the host, but my name is Murray, and I've had the privilege of being married to Lorna now for almost 30 years, and so we thought for something a little different, today we would actually interview Lorna and give you a chance to get to know her a little bit better. I've known her for a long time, and I know one of the early stories I always heard of her is she grew up north in BC, on the very northern part, and they were pioneers up in that area, her family. She was the youngest of 11, and her siblings say about her that she used to, milk the horses and ride the cows. And but the story was often that she'd be, I remember Lorna often telling me about how she would lie on the backs of horses in the summer, and her mind would just be running around with different stories on her mind. And so it took us a bit to get to a spot in life where Lorna could really pursue it. So today, I want to welcome to the podcast, Lorna. Welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, my dear. So this is just fun. This is like unusual to have the two of us on a podcast together, but this will be fun. We just get to chat and have some fun together. So
right on. Well, why don't you take some time to tell the audience just what inspired you to become a storyteller?
Well, I mean, like you mentioned, just being around, growing up on a farm and being around just things that I loved, like animals, or even just riding on the tractor or whatever. All these stories would come to my mind. And so that was like, some inspiration back then. Also reading back when I was a kid. I remember even talking on a few interviews with people. Just we were talking back and forth, and there's other people that have been inspired by detective stories like the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, which is definitely my inspiration. And also stories told around the kitchen table at the farmhouse, and I loved hearing stories of the weird and wonderful things our family did, or ancestors, I guess, did, and also from that acting out our own skits and plays at home, which was also very fun. So those are all things that have inspired me when I was younger. But then, after we were married and with our 4 children, I was inspired to, as I was homeschooling them and starting to teach them storytelling, that actually inspired me. That was like one of the sparks that really inspired my storytelling. So.
Okay, well, that's good. Getting started is a process, doesn't matter what you do, but for you as a storyteller, maybe talk about a little bit about the difficult learning curve that you had when you started to write and pursue the self-published world of books.
Yeah, so that was actually a big learning curve. Tons of fear, self-doubt, because I guess the biggest hurdle really is that you have the want to, which I definitely had, but learning just in general how to write stories when you feel like you've never really been told that much how to do it, so you have to kind of find your way. And I just remember as I was homeschooling the kids, I would start, I would learn, and then I would write in a notebook, right? And I'd have these notebooks, and I'd write stories in them, and then I would start. I remember I started to write a little more seriously because I just, I had to get this story out of my head and onto paper. And but a lot of struggle in there because there was a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity, a lot of, what if this is never good enough? What if I never can find readers that would actually be interested in what I write? And, it was actually, so I had done a bit of that. And then I started to blog, basically practicing in public. That's really what blogging is, which is scary all by itself. And I remember doing that. And that was actually the start of 2012. And then in the fall of 2012, I started with the first Tri-British course with Jeff Goins. And I remember that very vividly because I had an aha moment. Because I think the whole time I thought, you know, I need to be validated. I have to be validated by like an agent or a publisher, or someone needs to validate me to say, you are a writer. But the truth is that you can actually pick yourself. You can actually choose and say, I am a writer. You don't need someone to validate you. And that was actually a huge like light bulb moment, really. And then also, finding a community of writers who just would just share everything they knew was like, wow, I thought that's amazing, right? And that really helped me. Yeah.
Oh, good. So, and you were mentioning you started blogging. This Create a Story You Love wasn't your first blog. It took a bit getting there. But what was the inspiration for starting Create a Story You Love?
Yeah, I think it is partly because I was trying to find my way with writing, right? And I would spend like hours, as you know, hours like searching for how do I do this one thing and how do I do that and what is story structure again? How do I do that and what does that mean? Or and all these different things about writing that I just had no clue about. All I knew was that I had stories in my head, but like structure, what's that? Or like, okay, so what do I do? Do I just write it on a notebook and somehow it magically appears into a book that's published? No, right? So I struggled to find these answers, right? And that was really the inspiration because it had taken me so many years, not only to get past the fears of, the whole I'm not good enough, and I still struggle with that, but it has gotten better. And the comparisonitis, comparing myself to other writers, that sort of thing. And just on the know-how end of things, I struggled to find things even on the practical side, like the how to write a story, the how to edit and rewrite, like how does that actually work, and even finding the tools that you need to self-publish. That was it took a few years to find even the tools for like on how to do all of this, right? And because it had taken me so long, that was actually, I guess you could say, the passion behind Create a Story You Love, because I really want to help other writers to do this much faster than I did, right? Because it took me so many years. And honestly, I would just be happy if there would just be a few writers that I could, where somehow I could help shave 5 years off of their learning curve, right? And because I understand, I guess that my big passion is to help other writers to kind of uncover the mystery of writing and self-publishing, and to learn how to unblock their path, whatever it is, whatever fears they're facing, or any intimidation or whatever it is, right? That's blocking them, to help them get past that, because there's stories inside them. But if we could just unblock that and then start to move beyond the mystery, so you can start to see, how does the structure work and how can we apply it to your story? I mean, that's just really exciting when that becomes sort of more of an aha moment where you can, where you just see the story and it just, and it starts to flow easier, because it's like, you just have that epiphany, like, oh, if I can do one story, wow, I can keep doing this, right? And so that's really was the impetus behind the Create a Story You Love podcast website. And I just wanted, and also actually the reason why, I wanted to interview many successful indie and hybrid authors, because I wanted to learn from them, but I also had a passion for other people who would listen to the podcast, to be able to learn too and be inspired by other writers.
Yeah. In that process, so we've had lots of conversations about finding your voice. And I know this isn't some of the things that we talked about as far as maybe that we would address this in the interview, but I think it kind of ties here. How's that process been as far as finding your voice? Because lots of writers talk about it, and I know that's been something that you've often been pursuing, is how do I narrow that down and get that, become that, I don't know if that would be become the authentic me, or how you would put that.
Yeah, yeah. So finding your voice is really more. It's more of an uncovering of who you really are. So that includes your calling, your passions, which is the beautiful thing, really, because this is why each writer is so unique, right?
Yeah.
They could have actually the same story in their head,
Yeah.
but each writer would write it different.
Yeah.
Because they have a different filter on how they see the world. They have
Yeah.
different experiences that they bring to the story, and they would even literally touch different readers' lives
Yeah.
from telling their own version of the story.
Yeah.
Because it has to do with your calling and your passions and just how you say things,
Yeah.
like just how you word things.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful thing when you start to, when you start to get freed up to write the words that just come to your, just write it naturally to find your natural voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking lots of your listeners, they're probably facing the same thing. I think it's one of the things that you've done well is, and that's what blogging often I think has helped with, is you've had that opportunity to pursue your voice, and then get to the spot where to say, because this isn't the first blog that you've done, and you got to the spot that said, I started someplace and started to realize this isn't my voice, and said, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to start something else, so that I can narrow my focus and become more, I guess, who you actually are. And so you gave yourself that permission to say, I'm going to shut this down. In some ways, I'm going to fail at this. That's all right.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to start something else.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, it's kind of the whole illusion of, if I find myself digging a hole, maybe my first thing would be to stop digging. Hey, you don't find myself in a hole, stop digging. Right? Yeah. And but sometimes people have to have permission to do it.
Yeah.
Right? That it's okay to stop. You're starting a book.
Yeah.
We were getting ready for this interview, and Lorna was shutting things down on her computer so that we'd have some space opened up on her RAM. And I think I saw in Scrivener there was 11 titles that she's messing around with, and so you never know what you're going to end up with. But like sometimes you need to give yourself the permission that I'm starting something, and then I realize this isn't right. I'm going to start again.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely true. And, it helps also when you have people speak into your life of what they're seeing.
Yeah.
For example, I remember when I had, because before this one I had Raw Story Life. Yeah. And I had another writer friend, Brian Hutchison, actually. He was looking over because I said, what do you think? Because we were talking about websites and stuff. And he said, Lorna, I'm not exactly sure what your focus is here on this one. And that I pondered that for like weeks. I thought, so what exactly is my focus here? Yeah. And what do I actually really want that I would stay passionate? Because that's the other key. Yeah. You have to be able to stay passionate about whatever topic it is. Yeah. Because there are rough times. Yeah. You're not always every single day going to feel passionate, but if there's something that kind of is a driving force, then you've probably hit on the right thing, right? And that was actually a really key moment. And besides you telling me different things about, are you sure this is where you want to go? Because it seems really like, you're kind of into storytelling, which is true.
Telling off and encouragement have sometimes been a fine line. There we go. But and I think one of the things you're mentioning, like that, I know for yourself. And I think lots of people who you're writers, you're that kind of thing. You tend to be people that spend lots of time alone. And twice now you've mentioned, so if it was Brian speaking into what you were doing, if it was times when you were part of Tribe Writers and hearing from those people, just the importance to build some relationships, because otherwise if you're only hearing from yourself, it's sometimes it's a challenge. And some of your real aha move ahead moments have been because you've heard it from someone else. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, right on. Why not talk about some of the people or book or resources that you use daily to help you keep going?
Well, I mean, there's many things that I've been inspired by. I have to say, first of all, I'm really grateful to my creator for the passion for storytelling and the capacity and the desire to keep learning every
Yeah.
day. That's a big thing for me. I feel like I have, even on my walks. Here's a key I've actually discovered for writers, and I'm sure most of the people listening to this anyway, but to stay grateful and to stay thankful every day. I can't tell you what a change it makes, actually, even mentally in your head,
Yeah.
because it actually opens up capacity for creativity, and that's the honest truth. When you're grateful, and because I've done both. I've lived days when it's been fear and insecurity and whatever, and then my mind is clouded and the creativity isn't there. The days that I am thankful and grateful, those are actually the days where creativity just comes like a whirlwind. And those, I just wanted to, that just just thinking about that, but that's really key, I think. And then of course I'm so thankful for my husband. I married my best friend, and we've had a few. We were talking about this morning. We've had a few bumps, or along the way, or as he likes to call it, doomsday temples along the way. But we have done this for a few years, but he's always, supported and encouraged my crazy dream to write stories. But I hope, that I've encouraged your dreams too.
Oh, yeah.
And then also our four children, they have been huge inspirations. They love stories too, and mostly in movie form or gaming for the boys. Actually, those are stories too. And it's just so wonderful to, I guess, to have that passion together. And but then of course I've been inspired by blog posts, podcasts, and books, like some podcasts like the Creative Pen with Joanna Penn, or the Accidental Creative with Todd Henry. Or, I mean, there's so many. Just ask Murray. He sees them all on my phone. There's so many podcasts that I listen to. But each has its different thing that inspires me. I'd have to say that. And then, of course, there's books, that inspire me. One big one, actually, a favorite of mine, is actually by Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. Her words really resonated with me, because she was saying, let your inspiration lead you wherever it wants to lead you. Keep in mind that for most of history, people just made things and they didn't make such a big freaking deal out of it. I think that there's a lot of truth there, right? Because how did we get all this stuff? It was just people deciding, oh, I could create this, right? Basically being Renaissance people. And I feel like, we could just maybe encourage more of that in ourselves, right? Like a lot of people listening, probably your parents or your grandparents sewed their own clothes. They cut their own hair. They grew a garden. They canned. I know in our family we, butchered chickens and farming stuff. But you just make it. If it's not there, you just figure out a way to make it.
Yeah.
And anyway, I think that's why I really resonated with Elizabeth Gilbert's words, that we make things because we like making things, right? And uh, and inspiration works with us, it seems, because inspiration likes to work with us, because there are things inside of us that is kind of humming along, right? And sometimes it's below the surface, and there's ideas that are percolating. And sometimes they just kind of sit there, right? And they can sit there for like weeks, months. But then at some point it's going to start bubbling, and okay, I have to do something about this, right? And just to listen to that, I think, right? But these are the types of things that inspire me, would be those kind of things.
I thought I should touch base on, earlier you were just talking about starting your day grateful. And for those of you who might be listening to this podcast and you're supporting a creative, it's... one of the growing things for me has been, I've got to be careful when I start my day, and some days you don't start grateful. You're starting from a spot that's not there, or you've got some challenges that you're about to face. If I unload those on Lorna before I head out the door, that has really the possibility to destroy a creative day for Lorna. And so, got to be careful when you're having those conversations and how you're doing it, because you want to see. I know those of you who are listening to that, and you're tied with a creative person. You don't want to destroy that creativity day, and so sometimes you've got to watch those things. That's for sure. Well, why not talk to the listeners a little bit about what you're working on right now?
Yes, well, as you mentioned, there's a lot of things sitting on Scrivener.
Yeah, it's a good thing that the file capacity has gone up since we first started using computers. That's all I know.
I know, it's crazy. So yes, everyone who reads the blog knows that I have a tendency to chase after the shiny new thing.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to hold that in. So I'm starting to put those ideas in files.
Yeah, exactly.
But so I guess right now I'm in the middle of rewrites, edits for Longing for Love, which is actually the prequel in a Mulberry Island romance. And this one, the prequel, is set in the 1920s, and so it's like the love story of the founders of the people that started the island. So it's going to be like the grandparents, I guess, to the rest of the series. So, and then I'm starting to write out Returning to Love, which is book 1 in the same series. But this is so book 1, and other books to come are going to be contemporary.
Yeah.
So the prequel is the only one in the 1920s, and then I'm actually also writing a new nonfiction called Finish Your Book.
Yeah.
And so this is really for any writers who, like me, have struggled to win, against, constant distractions or fears or insecurities. This is what this book is for. This is, to finally do what it takes, and it'll talk a little bit about productivity and also about, connecting and have that accountability with other writers, because that's actually, I've discovered, that's kind of important. Yeah. And so that's kind of what this book is for.
Yeah.
And I'm also have another idea, big surprise, but for a membership site for writers to learn to tell their own stories and to self-publish them. And I'm bouncing ideas around. I bounce them off of Murray. He must get tired of them. But for instance, each month having a storyteller's Q&A mastermind, or a storyteller's, each month, a mastermind each month, a storyteller's fast track, etc. And, besides the common, courses to kind of get you there. And, but for writers who are interested in learning more, just head over to www.thestorytellersroadmap.com, and you can sign up there to get updates and also get a free video lesson and be the first to know when it opens, not exactly sure when, but to a small beta group, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Right on. And who do you have? I know we've got an exciting, some podcast interviews that are coming up here in the fall. You want to mention a few of those?
Yeah. So, I mean, just have some fun people to chat with. I was amazed that I usually am amazed people that say yes to an interview, but I'm also very thankful that they do, because it's just so fun to talk to all these authors. But the author of The Practicing Mind, Tom Sterner, is so he will be coming up here at the start of September in an interview. Yeah. And Katie Cross, who's a full-time fiction indie author, and she's actually a full-time story coach too. She will be on later on in September. And also Jeff Carson, who is actually a full-time indie thriller author. And then actually another one is Cassia Schreier. She's a full-time self-published fiction author, and I actually met her at Calgary's When Words Collide conference, so she'll be on too. So it's just fun to be able to connect with all these writers.
Oh, that'll be really good. So yeah, we're definitely looking forward to those interviews and what the fall looks like. Maybe just mention, how can people get a hold of you online? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so for people that listen to the podcast, just head on over to www.createastoryyoulove.com, and you can, if you want, you can sign up for the free Storytellers Roadmap, just kind of a few. That's like a free mini course in email form on how to write and self-publish your story. Or if you like fiction, go to lornafaith.com and you can just click on the contact if you want to send me a message to whatever you want.
Well, really good. Well, thanks for joining your podcast today. It's been good to have you, and you know what? We've been glad to have you on this 50th episode. We're looking forward to, anytime you start something. When you start, hopefully you're doing it better when you hit 50 than when you were starting and doing your first one. And so we just hope as this continues that you're going to get great benefit from it, and that story that you've got in you, that the world needs to hear, that you're going to get it out, and so create that story you love. That's what we want to see. So thanks for joining us today.
Bye-bye.